we're going to be explaining some even questions on this one. And on this first part of the worksheet, they want us to do operations with functions. This whole worksheet's on operations with functions, but they want us to find f plus g of x. This simply means add your f function with your g function. This notation, f minus g of x, that simply means take your f of x function minus g of x function. This notation is really f times g of x. Multiply your f of x with your g of x. And this is f divided by g of x, which is taking your f of x function and dividing it by your g of x function. So this is very lengthy, tedious. It takes a while. It's a lot of work to show on paper. So number 2, they want us to, let's first start by writing down maybe the notation f plus g of x. Okay, what does that really mean? That means to take your f of x function and add it with your g of x function. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in what f of x really is. What is f of x? That's just the name of this machine, 3x plus 1. So I'm going to take the 3x plus 1 and put it right here in place of the f of x. And most of the time you would use parentheses when you plug in, right? So we're going to plug in what f of x actually is. It's 3x plus 1. And then we're going to plug in what g of x actually is, which is 2x minus 3. Now, in this case, it doesn't really matter if I have the parentheses because there's nothing to distribute. And right here, there's a plus sign. And if you distribute that plus sign, nothing changes. So you could kind of ignore the parentheses and just realize that you're combining like terms. So you would be thinking like, well, what is 3x plus 2x? Well, 3x plus 2x is 5x. And what is 1 plus negative 3? That would be a negative 2. And that is your answer for f plus g of x. So there's all the work. There's the answer for f plus g of x. And that's barely the first one that they want us to do. They also want us to go do f minus g of x, f times g of x, and f divided by g of x. So let's move on to the next one, f minus g of x. Okay, so I'm going to write that down right here, right below. F minus g of x. Okay, now what does that notation actually mean? It simply means to take your f of x function minus your g of x function. And you guys probably already figured it out. I'm staying color coordinated here. I'm doing my f of x in red and my g of x in blue. So this red one is going to go right there where the f of x is at. And again, right here, it is very important to plug it in with parentheses. Why? Because we're subtracting. Okay, so the f of x is really the 3x plus 1, and the g of x is 2x minus 3. Okay, so because we actually have a minus sign, like on this first one, it didn't really matter because when you distribute a plus, nothing changes. But over here, when you distribute a minus, it actually changes the signs. So this gets distributed, and that becomes a minus 2x, and distributed there, it becomes a plus 3. And obviously, there's nothing to distribute in the front one. So you could just bring that down if you wanted to, 3x plus 1. So now we have all these 4 terms, and we're going to combine the x's with the x's. And if you think about what is 3x minus 2x, that's simply 1x. And what is 1? 1 plus 3, that's 4. So your final answer here, you don't have to put a 1 in front of the x. You could just say x plus 4 is your final answer for f minus g of x. So this is all the work showing f minus g of x. So far we've done f plus g of x. We're doing f minus g of x. We already did f minus g of x. Now let's move on to f times g of x. So the notation there, what is f times g of x? What does that actually mean? That means that I am going to multiply my f of x function times my g of x function. And I'm going to plug in what f of x actually is. Remember, f of x is just the name of this actual binomial. So I'm going to plug in the binomial in place of the f of x, which is 3x plus 1. Now I'm going to plug in the binomial, that blue binomial 2x minus 3 in place of g of x, 2x minus 3. And we are multiplying, and that requires some work right here, okay? So let's do that. We're going to distribute 3x times 2x, that's 6x squared. 3x times negative 3 is a negative 9x. Positive 1 times 2x is a positive 2x. Positive 1 times negative 3 is a negative 3. After distributive property, we could combine the two middle terms. That'll give us a negative 7x. Bring down the 6x squared, bring down the minus 3, and there's your answer for f times g of x, okay? And there's all that work. So we've done f plus g of x, we've done f minus g of x, we've done f times g of x. The only thing left is f divided by g of x. So let's just write down that notation right here. Parenthesis, f divided by g of x. So what does that notation actually mean? That just means that you're going to have a division problem, and you're going to have your f of x function up on top, and you're going to have your g of x function on the bottom. And this one is probably the easiest one of them all, because what is your, so here's going to be my answer. What is my f of x function? Simply the 3x plus 1. What's my g of x function? It's simply the 2x minus 3. So this is technically my answer right here, guys. That's my answer. Now, there's going to be, later on when we get more advanced with this stuff, you might have like something that you could factor up here and maybe factor down here. Then you could cancel things out and reduce. But there's nothing to factor, nothing to cancel. So this is the answer. However, whenever you have a fraction as an answer that has a variable in the denominator, you got to make sure that this does not become undefined. How does it become undefined? By ending up with a 0 down here. So here's a fact. You don't want this denominator to be 0. So let me write that down. I don't want the 2x minus 3, I don't want it to be 0. So this is kind of like a extra problem that you have to do. You have to solve this like if it were an equation. So you're going to go plus 3, plus 3. You're going to end up with 2x. You don't want it to equal 3. So you're finally going to divide by 2, divide by 2. So here it is. In addition to the answer, you also want to state this right here, that x cannot be 3/2. So you're going to say, but x cannot be 3/2. Why is that? Because if you plugged in a 3/2 into the x, imagine a 3/2 being right here. The 2 would cancel with the 2 on the denominator, and you'd end up with just a 3 take away 3, which would make the whole thing 0, which would make the whole thing undefined. So this first part of the worksheet is adding your f of g, or your f plus g of x, then subtracting f minus g of x, and then multiplying f times g of x, and then dividing f divided by g of x. And whenever you get a fraction as an answer with the denominator, make sure that that denominator is not 0. So you got to say, but x cannot be whatever value would make it 0. Let's move on to the next part of this worksheet. And I'm explaining some even ones only, not all the even ones. Let's do some of the even ones. So I don't know, pick an even one out of right here. 10, 12, or 14, any one you want. 14, picking the most fun one. Okay, so what are they asking us to do here? This is fog notation, and this is a little weird the way they write it. I don't like this notation, to be honest with you. What this says is g, it's not multiplication, it's an open dot. So that kind of, what it means is g of h of x. So g of h of x. Now what does that really mean? It really means this, g of h of x. Okay, I like this notation better because to me it's more clear, more visual, that I need to take my h of x function and plug it into my bigger g of x function. Take the h of x and plug it inside the bigger g of x. So if you had g of 5, what would you do? You'd plug in a 5 into the g function and do the math. But it doesn't say g of 5, it says g of h of x. So whatever h of x is, you're going to plug it into g, and you're going to do the math. And then after that, you got to do the opposite of that, which is h of g of x. So you did g of h of x, now you're doing h of g of x. Now you're going to plug in the g of x into the h of x. You're probably thinking, what the heck is he talking about? Well, let's just write it out. Let's go. You guys wanted to do number 14, the most fun one. So let's start maybe down here by writing out the notation g of h of x. And then over here on the other side, I'm going to do, because they want both. They want g of h of x, and they also want h of g of x. So on the other side, I'm going to do h of, and in there, g of x. Okay, so we got to do both of these. And as you can see, I'm trying to stay color coordinated. I'm going to do the first function in red, and I'm going to do the second function in blue. Okay, so let me just ask you guys something right here. If I said, what is g of 5? Imagine there would be a 5 right here. What's g of 5? What's the answer? 7. You guys got it, right? So if I say g of 5, plug in 5 right there. If I say, what's g of 1? What do you do? What's the answer? 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. You guys get it. So whenever I give you something here, you plug it in and you do the math. Do I have a 7 right here? Do I have a 1 right here or a 3? No. What do I have here? I have h of x. What is h of x? H of x is really this guy. Okay? So this guy is going to go into the g of x function. So you're going to actually replace that h of x with what it actually is. So you're going to have g of, and instead of 5, instead of 1, what do we have? We actually have a variable expression, a binomial, a quadratic binomial, 2x squared minus 3. Okay? So again, if I said g of 5, you would plug in a 5 right there. But you have this junk that you got to plug in there. So I would start by writing the g function, this function right here, write it pretty big with parentheses instead of the x, and then plug in what they want you to plug in. So you really have the g function is x plus 2. And what are you actually going to plug in? You're going to plug in this quadratic binomial. So plug that in, 2x squared minus 3. Now, there is nothing to distribute in front of the parentheses, so you really don't need the parentheses. So you could just rewrite it without the parentheses, 2x squared minus 3 plus 2. Combine like terms, the number with the number. Your final answer is 2x squared minus 1. That's your final answer. Final answer to what? To the g of h of x. So g of h of x is 2x minus 1. 2x squared minus 1. I hope that makes sense, okay? Or another way of doing this is you could have said, okay, well, I want to plug in this smaller function into this bigger function. So you could start with the bigger function, g of x, and just write that out, big parentheses plus 2, big parentheses plus 2, and then actually plug in that value in there, okay? You didn't have to actually show this detail, but it makes more sense to me, so hopefully it makes more sense to you. Same deal over here, h of g of x, okay? So we did it, g of h of x, now we got to do the opposite, do the h of g of x. So we're going to plug in the red function g of x into the bigger blue function h of x, okay? So what is g of x? G of x is really x plus 2. So you could take this x plus 2 and replace the notation with what it actually is. So here it is, h of what? It's actually an x plus 2, okay? Now, if I said, what is h of 5? If I said, what is h of 5? What would you do? You'd plug in a 5 right here. And you go 5 squared is 25. 2 times 25 is 50. 50 minus 3 is 47. So h of 5 is 47. If I said h of 5, what do? You plug in 5, do the math, and you get an answer. If I say, what's h of 1? Plug in 1, do the math, get an answer. If I say plug in h of 0, plug in 0, do the math, get an answer. It says h of x plus 2. You're going to plug in this binomial, do the math, and get an answer. So what is this h of x function, this big blue h of x function? You're going to rewrite it, but instead of x, you're going to put parentheses. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to rewrite it. 2x squared minus 3. There's my big blue function. And inside my parentheses, where x used to be at, if I had a 5, I'd plug in a 5 and do the math. If I had a 7, I'd plug in a 7 and do the math. I don't have a number. I have a binomial, x plus 2. I'm going to plug in that binomial, x plus 2, and I'm going to do the math. So doing the math here, you got to start with your binomial squared, okay? So that is x plus 2 times x plus 2. So you got to do a significant amount of work right here on the x plus 2 times x plus 2. What is the answer? It's x times x squared. What's x times 2? That's 2x. What is 2 times x? That's another 2x. What's 2 times 2? That's 4. And then you could combine the middle terms. 2x plus 2x is 4x. Bring down the x squared, bring down the plus 4, and that's barely this part of the math. That's barely the binomial squared. Are you with me? We still need to bring down the multiplication of 2 right in front of it, and it's to the whole thing, not just to the x squared, it's to the whole thing. And then you still need to bring down the minus 3 at the very end. Okay? So we need to multiply the 2 first and then subtract 3 at the very end. Fun stuff. Let's distribute 2 times x squared, that's 2x squared. 2 times 4x, that's 8x. 2 times 4 is 8. Then you could bring down the minus 3. And at the very end, you could get a plus 5. Okay, so the final answer to this guy would be 2x squared plus 8x plus 5. And that would be the answer to h of g of x. So all of this belongs to this work, h of g of x. That was probably the most challenging one on this on this middle part of the worksheet, okay? The other ones are definitely easier, less math to do. Now the final section is the most fun, and it's not the hardest. It's just, you just got to understand the notation, right? Like if I said, what is, let's say, h of 0, okay? Forget the g. If I said, what is h of 0, what does that mean? Plug in 0 where? Into the x of what function? Of h, right? What this is saying is plug in 0 into h. We all could do that. We're going to get an answer. It's going to be a number. And then once you get that number as the answer, then you plug it into the g, right? So up here on the instructions, it gives you 3 functions. To stay color coordinated, I'm going to do this one in red, this one in blue, my g of x in blue, and my h of x in green, okay? So they want us to do h of 0 first. You could technically do this in your head. I'm actually going to show my work right here for this guy. So that's going to be parentheses squared minus 1, plugging in a 0. 0 squared is 0. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, okay? So h of 0 is really a negative 1. So what I really have is g of negative 1, okay? And my g function, I guess, should have been in blue because I'm trying to stay color coordinated. So I'm going to plug in the negative 1 into my blue g function. So what is my blue g function? It's x plus 4. So it's really x plus 4. But what am I plugging in place of x? I'm plugging in the answer that I got, negative 1. So the final answer is 3. So g of h of 0, the answer is 3. That's my answer to the original. A lot of these could be done in your head. You guys want to try one in your head? Check it out. Let's look at another even one. Let's say number 18. F of 5. That's really going to be a number. We're going to go to the f function. We're going to plug in a 5. What's 3 times 5? 15. Okay? So technically, we know that this guy right here is really 15. So you got h of what? H of 15. Okay? And we said h was in green. So now I just need to go to the h function, the green one, and plug in 15. So like I said, you could do this in your head. Well, maybe not, because that ends up squaring 15. It's a big number. use a calculator. So you're going to end up with something squared minus 1, and we're plugging in the 15 right in there. And with the calculator, because I don't know what 15 is, it 226? Let's see, 15 times 15, 225. 225 minus 1, so you have 225 minus 1 is 224. So that'd be your answer for h of f of 5. So again, the notation is telling you take 5, plug it into the f, get an answer, get that answer, plug it into the h. Now these guys down here, this is the most fun one, the 22 and 23, because it says f of h of g of 1. Now, I admit I don't like this notation. I like the other notation where you could visually see what you're plugging in where. So you're going to have, the f is the one on the outside. So you're going to have f of big parentheses, okay? And then you're going to have your h function, or which I believe is in green up there. I don't know. So you're going to have h of, and then you're going to have your g function, which is in blue. And what are you plugging in? You're going to be plugging in a 1. So I like this notation better than this notation. On the actual quiz, I won't give you this notation. I'll give you something like this, right? So what is this telling us to do? Plug in, oh, dang. Plug in 1. What is going on here? I apologize. Plug in 1 into your g function, get an answer, then take that answer, plug it into your h function, get an answer, and once you get that answer, plug it into your f function, get a final answer. So like I said, a lot of these you could actually do in your head instead of showing work. So let's go to the g function and plug in a 1. If you plugged in a 1 right there, what do you get as an answer? 5, okay? So this guy, where are we at? This guy's really a 5. The g of 1, that's really a 5. So I could rewrite this. F of h of, but instead of g of 1, if you plugged it in and do it in your head, you get a 5. So now what do? We take that 5 and plug it in where? Into the h. So let's see if we could do this in our heads. If not, we'll write it down. H of 5, well, h is x squared minus 1. So if I plug in a 5 right there, what's 5 squared? 25. 25 minus 1? 24. So we do get, instead of h of 5, we get a 24. So this guy right here is really a 24. So you really got f of 24. This is not showing my work. This is just me writing down the notation, getting an answer in my head, and then rewriting it with the answer. So f of 24, that's the last one. That means we're just going to plug in 24 into our f function. So our f function's over here. Plug in 24 right there. That's 3 times 24. 3 times 24 is what? 72? Something like that. 3 times 24 is 72, I believe. Let me double check that. 24 times 3 on the calculator is 72. So that's our final answer right there. So we have the rest of the period to work on this stuff. I gave you a different worksheet as well the last time we were here, which is the same exact stuff. And we are going to have this stuff on half of the quiz this week. All right, so make sure you practice this. By the way, if you're working on this, you want to check your answers. Google Classroom has all of the answers shown. So this should be on Google Classroom, but you're going to have to zoom in a lot to be able to see all the work. By the way, if you happen to find a mistake on there, let me know, because I don't want to provide you guys the wrong answers. So all the answers are posted on Google Classroom.